Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. It's a wonderful day today. I just saw someone on the street who said, "Oh, Canada, Canada is so beautiful." And it's wonderful to be with you on our last session. Can you imagine? It's our last session already. Four amazing opportunities for a great conversation with moms. My name is Eleanor Wint, and as usual, I'm here with Debbie Pokornik. And today we want to look at this stellar presentation, which talks about being a strong woman. This is the fourth in the series of four opportunities, and we're going to try and keep it really to the point, very brief and very quick, so that you can go on with your season's celebrations and preparations. So before I start, I think Debbie has something important to say.
Thank you, Eleanor. It is wonderful to be with you here again for our fourth session. I'm very excited and happy that we were able to do all of these sessions together. It has been a wonderful collaboration. My name is Debbie Pokornik, and I have a company called Empowering Energy. And it basically focuses on helping women, moms especially, to stand in their power at work, at home, and at play. So today's topic is super near and dear to me, as I know it is to Eleanor as well. And I'm very excited to talk about it. So that's why Eleanor's mentioning the amount of time, because I have to really reel myself in and make sure I don't go off topic. I did want to share a really quick little story, though, from my youth that I think ties into this quite nicely. Back when I was about 10 years old, I remember a saying. Now, I don't know exactly when the saying came out, but it was big in the airways, which is a big deal because we didn't have social media back then, so it couldn't go viral. But still, it was all around and people were talking about it. And basically, the saying was, "I am woman, hear me roar." And I remember hearing my mom and her group of friends in the kitchen. They were talking about this saying. And one of them said, "Can you imagine what my husband would say if he knew how loudly I could roar?" And they all started laughing. And I walked out of the room and I kind of felt a little bit confused because I thought, well, doesn't that go without saying? Like, "I am woman, hear me roar." Of course you can. I knew women could roar. But their comment made me wonder. And so now, 40 years later, I totally get what they were saying. And I know that for so many women, it is sometimes hard to really shine your light the way you want to shine it, or to speak authentically, to say your piece without any fear of repercussions. So I think that story has helped to guide me in a way to say, you know what, women should be allowed to roar in their own special, beautifully fierce way. And that's in part what we're here to talk about today.
It's true, it's really true. Not all women are able to realize their own self-importance and feel strong enough to speak out. So that's why we want to start this session talking about boundaries, personal boundaries. Sometimes when we hear boundaries, we think about physical boundaries. I was reading Philip Moffitt. He's the author of Dancing with Life. And he made a couple things much more clear to me, because I realize now that it's more than physical boundaries. It's not saying that I am here and you are there and our space is quite separate. Nowadays, we have legislations about public smoking, smoking in public. Or we have something about sexual harassment in the workplace. Or you'll find that when people get divorced, they're talking about their boundaries, personal boundaries. How much can someone speak to you like that, or can someone intrude on your space without invitation? So personal boundaries means you're not honoring the space of another, nor are they respecting your space, your boundaries. and it calls for some sort of invitation. Now, I know sometimes we get a little bit afraid about really saying what's on our mind. Like in the workplace, for example, we are afraid to speak out and let the boss or the supervisor know, no, you can't just step all over me like that. You can't just tell me what to do when you feel I should do it and not respect my sense of judgment. So sometimes there are instances, like I say, like at the workplace, or even in a personal relationship, moms. You can say to yourself, we are all tied up together. Both of us are tied together. We are one. The reality is that you're not one. And some of us might feel we have to take responsibility for the other person's life, which can become quite dangerous, yes? So we need to change this concept of physical boundaries to include emotional boundaries. We have to keep our mind clear, and we have to do this. It takes time and patience, I know, but we have to keep our mind clear and let go of any delusions about who you are. We have to strengthen the self, strengthen ourselves. Exercises that we suggested earlier on in this session, we can practice those exercises. Remember that routine in the morning about establishing self-worth. Who am I? I am being the best mom I can. That's a wonderful statement, and it stays with you for the whole day. It's an emotional statement, and it's a reality statement. So you have to be mindful of yourself and your activities and love yourself. Knowing your boundaries means knowing yourself and not permitting others to take advantage and tell you what to do when. You will find too that as this becomes more habitual and you are really developing that strength of self, you will find love for others flows much more easily between you. You and your partner will find that you can communicate on all sorts of levels. And it's much easier. It's much easier because you are able to maintain the distance and the difference between you. You know, there's a magnet that you put on the fridge that says something about life is one darn thing after the other. Well, that's really life. And it's not straightforward. So we can't solve the challenges without crossing the boundaries. But we have to know that the boundaries physically and emotionally exist.
I love that. I hope I'm not cutting you off because that was beautiful. It's so critical that we all know where we end and the other person begins. And that's not about cutting other people out of our lives. That is about truly knowing who we are and what we need and what we need from others. So I love what you just shared, Eleanor. That was beautiful. I would like to share a couple of other tips, and they actually tie in quite nicely with what you were saying as well. I have a book called Standing in Your Power. And in this book, I have in every chapter little Oh My Goddess sections. And the Oh My Goddess sections are meant to give you little ideas for how you can stand in your power and really awaken every day. And so one of the tips is that you actually notice your thoughts, which Eleanor was just mentioning. So this is perfect. You notice your thoughts when you wake up in the morning, because we go into habits, right? We have our little routines. And so maybe when you wake up in the morning, you think, oh, I'm so tired. I wish it wasn't time to get up. I wonder if, Johnny is going to be difficult today. He's been having such a bad time. And we kind of go in this little negative spiral that sets the tone for the whole rest of the day. So imagine if you took a step back and instead you wake up, and at first this will be very hard to do, but you wake up and maybe you decide, okay, I'm going to just stretch a little bit, take a deep breath. And with that, start to create a new pattern of thought. And it could be a thought about, I wonder what exciting things or what wonderful things are going to happen for me today. It's going to be a great day. I love my life. Now, if you're at a place right now where you really, really don't love your life, you love your kids, you love your family, and all of that, of course, but maybe you don't really love your life, then don't go for that big of a step. Rather than saying, I love my life, think, you know, I have a meeting today that is going to push me to be my best self. I can't wait to see how well I do. These kinds of thoughts completely change how we're going to start our day and help to get us into that zone of goodness. Now, interestingly enough, we can get up and sure enough, Johnny can push us and not want to get out of bed. And, you know, it can be still a difficult day. So I don't want you to think by having these thoughts that everything's going to go smoothly, because then as soon as things start to derail, if they derail, you'll right away think, oh, that didn't work. What a waste of time. And that's not the case. Instead, I want you to think, all right, so this is a challenge for me. I'm going to give this a try and continue on with my day. So always coming back to that place of I control my thoughts to a certain extent. And I am going to choose thoughts that help to set me up for a happier day, for feeling good about things. Now, on the flip side of that, my second tip is very, very similar. It's about focusing on what you are grateful for. Now, this is a big topic right now, and you probably have heard it before. Some people suggest that you journal at the end of the day and write down everything you're grateful for, or that these are the thoughts you have in your mind right before you fall asleep. That's a wonderful thing to do. If you're like me, what I found is I started having a list that I would go through, especially if I was really tired. You know, I'm grateful for my husband, I'm grateful for my kids, I'm grateful for my house, I'm grateful for my bed. And I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't really getting into it. The beauty of gratitude is really allowing yourself to feel the emotion. I am so grateful. I mean, I am right now so grateful for the warmth of my house, because it's minus 20 something out there in Canada where I live, and it's cold, cold, cold. And so I am so grateful that I have a house I can come into. And so I try to remind myself throughout the day to notice the things I'm grateful for and to really just say them out. I might say them aloud, I might say them in my mind, and to feel the gratitude for it. So I'm grateful for that little moment of laughter with my child. I'm grateful for my fireplace. I'm grateful that my car started, and to start to feel that. So those two little tips can really help you to feel stronger, to feel like you have a little bit more control over a world that can often feel like it's totally out of our control. What do you think about that, Eleanor?
You know, Debbie, that comment that you made about journaling, and I tried it, you know, I I just don't have that kind of discipline. I do it for 1 week, 2 weeks, and then the next week. But the point that you made about the routine, you know, being a routine, it's so key, because if we don't develop some routines in our life, then it just goes from day to day, sort of aimlessly, sort of no, it's just reacting rather than establishing exactly where you want to go, or how you want to get there. And as you said, sometimes something doesn't work and then you go negative instead of positive. You know, not thinking about the strengths now that you have gained. What you're saying is really very, very key, because it kind of links to the idea of why do you know where you're going, or how do you know where you want to go, you know? And it links to me in a way to that concept of a higher power. People sometimes get a little bit jumpy when you talk about a higher power. A higher power, what do we call a higher power? It's something that is inside of us, something that is more than us. It is something we can depend on. Yes, we can depend on that force inside of us that guides us as to where we want to go. It guides our thinking. And the important thing, I always think of it as the inner voice of wisdom. You know, when I was thinking about this presentation today, um, I thought about this saying, behind every great man, there is a great woman. And someone said to me, so who is behind the great woman? Or who is behind the woman? You know? And it's really that higher power. That's who is behind the woman. That woman is really fantastic, you know. A woman is unique. A woman has that strength and that inner wisdom that she can turn to. She doesn't always recognize it as easily. Some people recognize it more easily. But if you look at lives of great women, they all acknowledge that there's some higher power. So we are constantly growing and we're constantly changing. But the higher power never changes. It's constant, it never changes. Having faith in a higher power says, I'm willing to live my life positively. And I'm willing to live my life with the faith that what I do each day is divinely directed. You know, even if you don't want to think of it about it as religion, you know, some people say when you start talking about divine and spirituality, they get apprehensive that you're talking about religion. But don't think of it as religion. You can believe in a creator. You can believe in a supreme deity. There's agreement that there is much more than we acknowledge or understand in our daily lives. So since there is that higher instance in our life, we want to try and maintain contact with that higher instance. I want to suggest maybe just two little things, two easy little things that we can do. And it goes back to what you have been saying since this morning. The first, that morning routine. That morning routine is so important. And as part of it, we remind ourselves that there is a conscious higher power who is hearing. We have to say it somewhere. Yes, there is someone hearing. There is that instance, that deity that is hearing. It's inside of me. So when I make my statement, it's recognized. And the second thing is, share your belief about a higher power with your partner. We're never, some relationships never want to talk about things like this. Some relationships do. It helps the relationship if we can talk about what we believe in, and we believe in a higher power. So you become more confident, you become more relaxed, you know that the words that you're using are acceptable to you and to your partner. It's all about building those relationships so that you can really establish your strength as what Debbie calls a vibrant woman, a powerful woman, a strong woman. And it's so important.
Lovely. I love it. And, just I go through different phases with the seasons kind of. And so my routine will change depending on the season that I'm in. And it's not that I'm that organized. It's just that I pay attention in every season. I look back and say, okay, so where am I at? So just in these last few, I guess those last 2 months almost, I have started getting up each morning and sitting down rather than checking my phone or my computer or anything else. I sit down and I put on a meditation. I either do a guided meditation because that helps my mind to empty more easily, or I will just put on music and do my own meditation. And then I do sit, and I like to write. So I will sit with my journal and I'll journal about whatever came up in that meditation or about my dream. And it's just a really nice way to get me oriented towards the day. And so I'm doing that right now. In the summertime, I will go outside for that first little bit when I first wake up and watch the sun come up. If I'm up that early, depends on if it's coming up at 5, trust me, I'm not out there. But I'll try to go outside right away so that I'm really getting that daylight and the feelings of the morning rays of the sun as the way to start my day. And then I don't journal. I walk around and I think about things and talk about them or whatever. Now I live in the country, so I can do that without people thinking I'm too crazy. but it's just a really nice way to start the day and to set the stage. So it can be simple little things like that for setting your routine. So I love that, Eleanor. Very nice. I would like to add to what you were just talking about with helping people to understand a little bit of a difference within ourselves. So we certainly have that higher power, very important part of all of our worlds, whether we think it is or not. And again, as Eleanor said, it doesn't matter what you call it. It's knowing that there's something bigger than you going on. And so in my courses and programs and such, I often will talk about the fact that we have both our ego side, which is, I think of as the human side of us. So the ego feels everything. It's the feet of the ego are very firmly planted on the ground. It's the human side. But unfortunately, because of that, the ego can often come from a place of fear. It's afraid to try new things, to take risks. It's afraid of rejection or humiliation or, just making a fool of itself. It lives in a state of fear because it can die. That is the ego. It's a finite amount of time. The other kind of side of us, it's always present, always there, is our higher self. And our higher self is that piece of us that's connected to this higher power that Eleanor was talking about. And so the higher self is that part of us that is more like the soul. So depending on your beliefs, and I'm not trying to tell you what you should believe in any way, but the soul, in my version, continues on through all of our lifetimes. Now, if you don't believe in past lives or a reincarnation or anything like that, that's absolutely fine. Hopefully you can still open your mind enough to just think about these two different parts of yourself, because that higher self doesn't have that same connection to the earth. So it doesn't feel other than compassion and love. All right. It always comes from a place of compassion and love. It's very, very wise because it's fully connected to that divine energy. To, when we talk about inner wisdom, that is the higher self. And so when you recognize this, you realize that the higher self has really great advice. It can guide you in beautiful ways. I will often call on my higher self when I'm going in to do a presentation, when I'm going to a meeting that's going to be difficult. I'll say, higher self, please be in charge. Because my higher self can look at things objectively. It can access all the wisdom that I have access to, which is way more than I consciously know that I have access to. And it can bring all that forth for me. But I have to, at the same time, recognize that my ego, that human side of me, is very much involved in this, because the ego does feel. And when somebody looks at me in a way that seems mean or says something that hurts my feelings or disappoints me or angers me, that's very real for me, and especially for my ego. So I used to listen to a woman named Sonia Choquette. I still do. It's just I haven't run across her in a little while. And she's on a lot of different shows. She's a spiritual speaker, and she's written a lot of books. And she said, she's the one who said, think of your ego as your pet dog, okay? You love your dog. You don't go home and kick your dog and yell at it and lock it away. You still love your dog, but you do train it. You teach it to sit. And that really stuck with me, because then if I notice that I'm blaming, shaming, judging others, when I'm getting really caught up in my feelings of the moment, which will cause me to react and I'll regret it later on, right? Then I can say, ego, sit, and ask my higher self to come in and be in charge. Now, this takes time, and I've taken a huge topic and kind of it down into just a couple moments. But I really want you to know and understand that there is a difference. So when you notice that your feelings are completely guiding you, you might want to try saying, ego, sit, and then expect it to listen. If you don't, understand that your ego, similar to your dog, could bite someone. It could, out of fear, go and pee on their shoe. Those are not comfortable places to be. So rather than allow your dog to run the show, you just ask it to sit, tell it to sit, and expect it to sit, and you call in your higher self. It's a beautiful dance between the two. And it allows you to be fully and beautifully connected to your higher power, while at the same time having that very human experience that we've come here to live.
Two things, Debbie, from what you were saying. First of all, the name of the lady again. Think of your ego. Could you say her name again?
Sure, that's Sonia Choquette. And I can post her name in the comments as well.
Yeah, that would be great, because
Okay.
I think that that is by far the best explanation I've heard about how to handle an ego, you know?
Nice.
Because
I love it
sometimes,
too. It really stuck with me.
yes, yes, your ego really gets in the way so many times, you know? So I really, yes, please, it will be great. I think all of us will benefit from that link.
Awesome.
So quickly, in a couple minutes, we have tried to cover some very complex points. Maybe I can sort of tie together what we were talking about uh, and look back on what we have tried to do. Because today we're talking about, you know, I am a strong woman, the gift of a strong woman. The gift of a strong woman is a gift to the world and a gift to herself, a gift to her partner, because all throughout this series we have been talking about relationships and the fact that moms don't live for themselves. Mothers never live for themselves. They have to live for themselves and all the others that are they have any relationship with. So the strong woman has her routines, she has her acknowledgement of her ego, she has her acknowledgement of her self-worth. You know, she knows herself. She knows what that thing is. And most of all, she has contact with a higher power, which she acknowledges quite happily. She's quite secure about that. And as we're able to maintain that kind of belief in ourselves, it makes life go much more smoothly because we are sharing love and compassion. As we share love and compassion in our daily activities, we find that we have different relationships, different responses. Things seem to, people seem to behave differently for some strange reason. So, on these 4 sessions, we've tried to, we sat down, Debbie and myself, and we said, this is a collaboration, and we're going to try and do something special for moms and especially for relationships. We started, the first thing that struck us was that moms have a lot of stress. So we started with triumph over stress was our first session. That went very well because we gave lots of tips about how to triumph over stress and why it is possible to triumph over stress. Stress gets less. Stress has its chemical roots and it has its emotional roots. So as the new energy healers will tell us, dysfunctions and diseases, illnesses, come not only from physical things, but it also comes from mental and emotional things. So we can call out for help when we need help, or we can turn inwards and find that help also. So we looked at triumph over stress. We looked at raising the kids. And it's not just any old kid, it's our kids. our special kids. We're raising resilient kids, we're raising children who have a wonderful sense of self also. We're raising children using what we call the shine technique, where we bring out all those beautiful characteristics that are innate, that are in them. And as we go through raising self-confident kids, we know that they're on the path to success. Subsequently, it means we are also being successful parents. And then, if we're going to be really successful parents, we have an emotional attitude, emotional atmosphere at home. We have a certain relationship with our partner, and we are strong women. And I know Debbie wants to say something about this whole series too.
Absolutely. I'm trying. I'm watching the time and going, oh, Eleanor told me I have to be on time, and I'm trying so hard. I'm just teasing, but I totally agree with you, Eleanor. I think that all of those pieces, stress, resiliency, relationship, all tie back to being that powerful woman. And when we are willing to take the time to invest in ourselves, it makes a huge difference in everything we do. Every person that we come into contact with benefits by the amount of time and effort we put in to building up ourselves. And that's not about bragging about ourselves or anything. That is about really tuning in to what makes me tick, what feeds my soul, what makes me feel recharged, and how do I bring all of those or pieces of those into my daily existence so that I can really be shining my light in the world. And that is, to me, what it all comes down to. Part of my mission here on earth is to help as many women, moms especially, to really make that connection.
Thanks, Debbie. And I want to say thanks to everyone who has been tuning in and listening to us. Uh, we got a whole lot of views Wednesday on our second to last session, and I know today we'll get a lot of views. And remember, Debbie has her website, she has books, she has podcasts, she has lots of free giveaways, which we will put on the resources on the post. She's empoweringnrg.com, and I'm at eawpublications.com, and there you'll find the parenting blog, which we're trying to develop. And we also have books that we have authored. I just put out a new ebook called 7 Reasons Why You Rock, Mom, because I really believe in moms. So all these things will be posted as resources. And on behalf of Debbie and myself, we want to say thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And we look forward to joining hands with strong moms.